First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing funds.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got that.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. You got script. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Chinese critic.
erratic
Mikhail
detective is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. I'm not hearing you. Hi there, welcome to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. We just had a little technical problem there on mic. I wasn't hearing my operator. We apologize for that. This is the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. We have completed 17 months of this program. We thank you for your patronage. This is a special night on this program this evening. We had one special night before, and that was when our co-host, Leonard Gildarie, got married. And so we toasted his marriage on the show live. So this is a special night again. But there's some added dimensions to the specialness of the night. This evening is the birthday of our guest that was Friday gone. Then the next day, Saturday, was the birthday of Leonard Gildarie's wife. And tomorrow is Leonard Gildarie's birthday. So we have a fusion of birthdays. Our guest, one of Guyana's expert on indentureship, Professor Lomarsh Roopnaraine. His birthday was Friday. Saturday was the birthday of Mistress Gildarie. And tomorrow is the birthday of our birthday boy, Leonard Gildarie, who a few months ago got married. So we will toast the birthday in advance by asking Mrs. Gildarie to come between me and our guest. And let's have a toast to her husband. Mrs. Gildarie, are you there? So, this, could you pass the wine, please? Non-alcoholic wine. I don't use alcoholic. Could you open for your husband, please?
Freddie like drama.
This is mine.
Freddie like drama, ladies and gentlemen.
This is Professor.
Thank you.
And now your husband. And where's your glass?
We got a lot of December people around here.
December
the best people.
And my birthday is the 28th of December.
Yeah, your birthday is 28th of December.
Yeah, the 30th. I can't remember my own birthday. Right. So.
Special birthday, right?
Leonard Gildarie, tomorrow will be 50 years. I will ask Professor Roopnaraine how old he thinks he look like. For me, it's 90. Professor Roopnaraine just whispered in my ears, he looked like 95. I asked his wife, how old do you think he looks like?
26.
26. So
27. Thank you very much. I have good people in the house, unlike Freddie.
To our viewers out there, this is Leonard Gildarie's birthday.
Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow is his birthday. I'm getting Alzheimer's.
All right. Well, cheers. Thank you very much. I don't know I could do without this, but it's good to have good friends. And folks, I wish I could share with you. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Gildarie bought this. This is good. Made in Guyana?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I hope it's not made in Venezuela.
I got a hint of honey in it.
This is good.
gonna sweeten
Mrs.
nice,
Gildarie, don't go away. Just stay here. I'll tell you when to go.
Okay.
Can we if you're hearing me, Adaiki, can you please come in? Mr. Adaiki Marley, can you please come in? Good, he's coming. This is your this is one of our operators. His name is Adaiki Marley, Bob Marley's outside son. Professor Roopnaraine, this is Bob Marley's outside son. Cool, Jamaica deported him, and Fox Burnham took him in.
Glad to have you. Someone these days are gonna have to stand up to Freddie, like I do, right?
Yes.
Think he is a
feeling overwhelming.
Well, have a toast. Look up.
Yes.
Cheers.
Huzzah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Huzzah.
Remember when you got married?
Yes.
Freddie's too much.
And I agree with the other two individuals here, and not Mr. Kissoon.
Yes.
You don't look a day over 30. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Unlike Freddie. Huh?
I look like 113. Like 13 is a bad 13 is a bad number.
All right. Now that you guys are finished,
we have to.
We have our business to do.
No, we have to call in. No, don't go away. Don't go away. I have a surprise. Stay right there. Robert, can you come, please?
You still have to forgive Freddie. Freddie must have his moments.
Robert, can you hear me? Yes. Yes, Robert. This is your glass. This is Gildarie's birthday tomorrow. He's 50. I said he looks like 95. What do you think? How he looks like?
Definitely, like all the other individuals said.
Professor Roopnaraine, this is Robert Hussein. This is Robert Hussein. Outside child, upside Hussein. Outside child, yeah. And they deported him from Iraq, and the government again took him in.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
You're from Iraq? Okay. From that.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Mr. Gildarie.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Adaiki, if you can hear me, can you now listen? When you listen to this song, it keeps you in love. I would suggest to any two person we love, have a quiet tropical night.
Are you playing it for me or are you playing it for who?
Tropical night on the beach with your smartphone and play this song. This song was originally done by a man with a golden voice, Engelbert Humperdinck. This is the kind of music
that nobody knows about.
Keeps people in love forever. Adaiki, can you play one of the greatest love songs ever sang?
And I can guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, half again or three-quarter again don't know the song.
Well, they will know it now.
Love me with all of your heart. That's all I want. Love me with all of your heart. On that add-on. Just promise me this, that you'll give me all your kisses every winter, every summer, every fall. When we are far apart, oh, when you're near me, give me your love for a moment or an hour. Love me always as you love me from the start, with every beat of your heart.
The regular program, man.
Go after this program, go and listen to that song by the maestro himself, Engelbert Humperdinck. It keeps people in love. Mrs. Gildarie, happy birthday last Saturday.
Thank you so much. Enjoy
Good.
your show, guys.
Now, for our viewers there, our guest this evening is Professor Lomarsh Roopnaraine, regarded as one of the academic experts on indentureship in the Caribbean. Professor Roopnaraine has written 3 books on indentureship. If you're interested in our ancestors and how they came here, what they did, what they endured, I would suggest you read these 3 books, and they are available at Amazon. First, The Indian Caribbean, Migration and Identity in the Diaspora. Indo-Caribbean Indenture, Resistance and Accommodation, 1838 to 1920. Good books on indentureship. Very good books on our ancestors who came here and made something of the Caribbean. And Dr. Roopnaraine went far and afield outside of the Anglo-Saxon world and produced this book, Indian Indenture in the Danish West Indies, 1863-1873. Ladies and gentlemen and Guyanese, wherever you are, these are the products of one of the experts, Guyanese experts on our ancestors, our indentured ancestors that came here and made something of the Caribbean. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lomarsh Roopnaraine to our program. Professor, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Freddie. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Professor Roopnaraine teaches at Jackson State University in Mississippi. When we were discussing this program, he said to me that in his early undergraduate days, he produced a paper on the Venezuela-Guyana conflict, and his professors didn't know about it. And it's through that paper they got to understand. We will ask him about that paper, then we will move on to whatever he would like to talk about. What that paper was about, Dr. Roopnaraine?
Well, I wrote that paper when I was an undergrad at State University of New York in Albany in a course called U.S. Foreign Policy, and it was taught by an American professor about 30 years ago. And I decided to write a paper on the Guyana-Venezuela controversy, not dispute, an area I was confused about, because I did not know the distinction between controversy and dispute then, and I think I do have an understanding now, given some of the dynamics that have emerged recently between the news and so on. And the paper was really based on a historical context, looking at how this controversy developed historically and how it panned out. And I received a good grade in the paper, in a B, and the professor was very interested because that sort of topic was marginal to the course. The course really was focusing basically on the Cold War dynamics. In the case of the Caribbean, was focused on Cuba, and in Latin America, Chile, and so on, and the overt and covert actions conducted by the U.S. government, really, in the effort to suppress communism or contain communism in the New World, or in Latin America and Caribbean elsewhere. And so I talked to him, and he asked me this question. He said, well, what's going on right now? And that was 30 years ago. And I said, I really do not know. And so he didn't know either. And so that was some of the things I remember. But I must say I'm not expert in the controversy.
Yeah, I know what your feel is. Your feel is Indian indentureship.
But let me say this
yeah.
to bring it in the modern times. I do support Guyana position, and I will always support Guyana's position for a number of obvious reasons. I'm patriotic, despite the fact that I live overseas. My heart is always in Guyana. And if one uses the concept of civic nation in terms of describing patriotism, one does not need to live or be located or rooted in the land of birth to share nationalistic feelings. One can live overseas, and because we live in a global age, that sort of sentiment can be expressed through that medium. So that's one factor. That's that. The other thing, it's unfair for another nation to impose its will. In this case, want to grab land that is not connected to the modern mentality, the modern nation-state system. You just can't go there and claim another piece of land for your own without understanding the implications and some of the dynamics that follow. So in that regard, I support Guyana, but Guyana's position is fairer, it's more in tandem with the modern world system.
Okay, Gildarie?
Thank you very much, folks. And before we go there, a lot of folks have been questioning, calling and texting and trying to have an update as to the Venezuela situation. So let me start by saying this. You have 100 voters. I'm just going to put a story like that to you so you could have an understanding of what happened. And this is based on the news articles that are coming out. It is very clear now, it has been reported across the world that Venezuela electoral body is claiming that there is overwhelming evidence from turnout that they are gonna back the government, and that asking for a decision what to do with Venezuela. So that's very simple put. But I want to put a story to you. If you have 100 voters and 50 or 49 of them turn up and they voted, and they say to you 5 of them voted against and the rest of them 45 for, would you say that you have a mandate from that 100 electoral voters for that decision that you're asking for? And this is indeed the case with Venezuela. Pictures were coming out right across the nations yesterday, and we've seen this Latin American news, CNN, everybody would have had it, that you had very low voters turnout, which was a slap in the face of the Maduro government and what he was asking for. So he has failed miserably. He did not get the mandate. And here it is that he's saying that they overwhelmingly won. Big lie. Big lie. So I want to say to you that does not mean that nothing can't happen. I would have seen the Vice President, Barjagdi, today in the interview, and then even the President. We still have to be on our guard. I don't think Venezuela wants, in the analysis that we would have read and seen across the globe, Maduro is bluffing from all indications. He doesn't have money to feed his people. People are fleeing by the millions. So how are you going to fight a war, or how are you going to fund an invasion into a country? So the issue that is going to be in hand, what is his end game? The end game, elections next year. So he's trying to gather, maybe pulling one to the opposition. That is what the analysis is saying. So he's using this to galvanize the country, to maybe, he wanted to galvanize the country. Failed miserably. At the end of the day, where does that leave Guyana? Guyana has done everything possible based on what has been reported by the government, our government, and they're saying, look, we went to the international court because we believe this is the final place, the only place which could solve the situation, have a resolution to the situation. We have engaged our international and regional partners. We've seen statements coming out from CARICOM, OAS, the Commonwealth, United Nations. We've seen individual statements coming out from politicians across the world. This ain't going nowhere. Everybody's saying in an area which there's peace for years, decades and decades, you're going to see something like this. On the flip side of that, Venezuela, just like that, you wake up one morning after 100 years and say, let's invade them. Let's make a decision. You see that piece of land across there? I believe that 50 years back, it belonged to my grandmother. You ain't got no evidence on that land there that it belonged to the grandmother. So I go in and take it over now because I believe. So I ain't going waiting until the court rule on it. I'm going to cross there and take it. And whether they like it or not. And if they want, you know what will happen? I will allow them to live in a piece of it. And they would have to have that country or that piece of land in my name. So understand that very, very clearly. Where does that leave us as to where we are feeling as a people? Well, we have to continue to be vigilant. Let us continue to share all those things that we seen on social media, because it is not over yet. We still have to look at what that madman in Venezuela is saying. He's a madman. There's no other description that could be used to describe Nicolas Maduro and what they have done and what he's tried to fool his people with. Many of the Venezuelans in Guyana, they've come out and says, we don't want to be part of that. His people right in Venezuela said we don't want to be part of it. He has less than a 50% turnout, and there's a widespread belief that his electoral body rigged the election, not a very unfamiliar word to our people, rigged that elections to show that the numbers weren't what it's supposed to be. So I'm a little drawn out, but what you've seen there, not a mandate from the people, it failed miserably, backfired in the face of Maduro, and I don't know where they left him, probably very much alone, and I think it was a last-ditch attempt. But whatever it is, let us keep together as one Guyana. Let us continue to fight for this country. Let us continue to be responsible as a people. Do not share those things that they are trying to push and said we're invading, we'll be planting a flag here, we've already invaded in their country. Do not do that. Listen to what our army is saying, listen to what the government is saying. Let us keep this country. We can agree to disagree on the political level, on the floors of the National Assembly. When it comes to protecting this country on the national level, we have to hold one hand. Freddie Kissoon?
Thanks, back to our guest, and we want to thank him for his patriotic sentiments and the characteristic tone of people like him, that you may live in another country, but Guyana is inside your blood, and he's made it clear to us this evening that he supports the country of his birth. Dr. Lomarsh Roopnaraine is our guest. He's generally regarded as a Guyanese expert on indentureship. In fact, his latest book, The Indian Caribbean, Migration and Identity in the Diaspora, has won an award for its scholarship. And I will ask him to talk about indentureship, but talk about his award-winning book.
Yes, this book was given an award in 2019 by the Caribbean Studies Association, CSA. The Gordon Lewis Award.
It won the Gordon Lewis Prize.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very prestigious prize in Caribbean.
Yeah.
A scholarship, very prestigious. I didn't know that.
Yes.
It isn't stated in the book.
Yeah, in the new versions, they print every other year, 2 years, so it's inscribed. Because when this book was published, the award was not given. It has to be reviewed and all of that. So the new set of books they published, they put it at the front inside the page that it won an award. So if you were to pick up a book at the library somewhere in the United States, you will see that new edition that the book has won an award.
Well, one thing for sure, Gordon Lewis is one of the most outstanding scholars that the Caribbean produced, and that award in his name is given to very, very prestigious books. I must say, this has to be a very good piece of scholarship to have won the Gordon Lewis Award. Professor Roopnaraine, are you satisfied that Indian indentureship to the Caribbean has changed the Caribbean for the better in a positive way as any other incoming ethnic group?
Well, certainly, I believe that the influx of the ethnic groups that came to Guyana historically onto the contemporary period, each one has contributed to the nation building of this country as a colony, as a nascent state as well. Where the Indians are concerned, yes, they did. They brought a lot from the ancestral land, India, not only culturally, but also the economic drive, one reason why they came, and contributed to Guyana and the wider Caribbean, Trinidad, Suriname, and elsewhere, economically as well. They've also, over time, evolved according to the nation state, the modern nation state of Guyana, but yet they maintain some connection with India, not necessarily like India, but there's some connection there. So they are currently in the modern period, combining two areas of the world in terms of contribution to Guyana. Okay, specifically, Indians helped to develop, they survived, helped to resuscitate the sugar industry, which that's the main reason they were brought to Guyana, to ensure that the sugar industry survive, and they contributed to that. They also contributed to the development of the rice cultivation and cattle raising and so on. Other ethnic Africans as well. Africans are the ones who introduced rice cultivation in Guyana and the wider Caribbean, but Indians took it to another level. So they in the modern period, of course, they're involved in politics, they're involved in law, involved in medicine. Yeah, they've contributed significantly. At the same time, in that process, there's some ethnic tensions, ethnic upheavals. It's not news to both of you.
We've had a very outstanding Guyanese personality on this program, and he said something that is quite known. But when he said it, it sent a tragic jolt into you. We knew it before that Indian. He said he started his school, his Swami Akshavananda, that has his school in Cornelia Island of the West Coast. He said one of the reasons he started that school is when his Indian friends from the countryside were at Queen's College, how they were ridiculed and looked down upon. You want to talk briefly about this massive contempt that was shown by the Creole class, the mulatto Creole class, and the plantocracy to Indians, so much that for them to get along, they had to change their names to Christian names.
Yeah, that's one of the sad things of the Indian Guyanese experience. They had to conform to keep on moving things toward the modern state, which did not see the culture as complementing that modern state. So they had to change their names when they moved from the rural area to the urban area. They had to speak the English in a way that they wouldn't be ridiculed. I remember personally when I went to New Amsterdam, my sister was living there, her husband was a cop, and I went there, I was 12 years old, and she sent me to get some sugar. And the line was long, and a few other things. So when I went up, I said to the shopkeeper, let me get 1 pound sugar. Huh? Look back, people started laughing. He said, "There's got to be a country boy, because he can't speak the English language." And I wrote about that when I was writing for the Guyana Times, how Indians had to conform to things that were so challenging to them. Not to say that they needed those things to survive. In Georgetown, if you are in the civil service at the highest level or higher level, certain things you have to master. One, you have to get a command of the English language. You have to have these social behavior patterns to fit in order to get along. But that doesn't mean you should dismiss what have brought you there. In this case, from the rural areas of Guyana. Indians sometimes combine the rural Guyana with the urban in terms of, say, Hinduism. You may have a judge who is a practicing Hindu, but yes, he practiced the Western law. Right? I don't know if I answer your question, but it's the name changing, all that happened when Indians left India. It happened on the boat. It happened through the registration period. And now, as they got off, it continued to happen. And when they got back to India, it continued to happen as well. Many went back as changed persons. For example, they had alcohol in their diet, the meat in their diet, many vegetarians. The Hindus started to eat beef here. And so they went back to India. They maintained some of that, but they have to readjust to society that they were very familiar with. And the children who were born here went back, were maladjusted, because they were not accustomed to the caste system. In the Caribbean, the caste system was in flux between caste and class, right? It didn't happen overnight. Indians did not change their social structure from caste to class overnight. It was a gradual process. It's a very interesting process. They were straddled in both at the same time. Something that needs to be researched and talked to some more. So change it was very fundamental to the Indian experience, but not necessarily in a very beneficial way. Indians had to give up certain things in order to survive. They still do. Look at us right now. Me not talk like on me boundaries.
No.
I don't talk like when we go 72 village, me go talk like this.
I want to bring you, Professor, to modern times now, a little post-independence.
Yes.
I've seen debates and going up as to, and this is something I'm sure if you're talking Indian indentureship and the arrival and everything here, you have to look beyond and look at the development and the place of the Indians in Guyana. And I hate the word Indians and Afro-Guyanese. To me, you're Guyanese. And they got a mix and everything, and you're all Guyanese. But let's discuss that for history purposes.
Yes, okay.
Have you had a look at maybe some of the reasons why Indians are perceived to be more better at business than Afro-Guyanese, let's say, perceived to that? Is that a perception or is that reality, and what could have caused that? What were some of the conditions that would have led to that?
Well, say about the 1930s, about 10 years after indentureship, Africans in particular had moved into the areas or job areas that was not really driven by business. They moved to the civil service. And the reasons for that are multiple. One of them is that the plantation, the agriculture sector was a demeaning environment, something to move away from. And one can understand that. The sins of slavery, the post-sins of slavery, it was an abusive environment. And so the idea of upliftment, social, economic, and educational, meant that they had to go into the civil service. Now, once the Africans moved out, not all of them, moved out of the agricultural sector, there was a vacuum. And so what Indians took that up, and they combined that with family, and over time they move into the business sector. Okay, so then they, in Guyana in particular, the Africans were in the civil service, or have been in the civil service mainly, and Indians in the agriculture sector, where they combine religion, ecology, and economics to what they have become. Okay, they straddle many dimensions of life, not necessarily relying on the civil service. In some ways, the civil service is a very parochial environment. It's a limited environment. Okay, you become a good civil service. You say you become a good policeman. Okay, you receive a salary. you receive this and that. It can be limited. Okay, despite the fact you're given your salary, you have the prestige, you have the power that comes with it, and you're satisfied, but it does not take you beyond that. Whereas you're in the business, chances are you will have various linkages to not only within economics, but linkages to culture, linkages to religion, and when that's combined, you have a sort of, I don't want to say dominance, you have a sort of a confidence how you move along from one generation to the other. To use a generational mobility, the civil service, look at it, it's been a stagnated place. You know, it's, don't get me wrong, one can live by it, okay? But it's also stagnated. Whereas in business, and in the other things I just said, there's an element or a chance that you can move up, and up. So then, to answer your question, the location of these ethnic groups within the national space determines how they are or how they become.
So you're saying the Indians naturally moved into that, and there was the Afro-Guyanese into the civil service, and that's how they developed themselves. They took the opportunities there.
Yes, and also one must understand that Africans not all moved away from the plantations. Many bought out, pulled the resources, bought out abandoned plantations, and they developed that industry there, different forms of agricultural activities. But by and large, a mentality, and which was a good one, I think, because the sins of slavery and what had happened during slavery had an enormous impact on the African mind. And so from one generation to the other, the emphasis is education, okay, as opposed to business. Education, and education historically meant that you go to school and you become a teacher, or you work for the civil service, or you become a nurse. And again, the colonial society, the civil service is a stagnated place. You're not going to become rich. You're not going to become rich. But if you are in the business sector, you may fall, but chances are, because you can go like that, you take a chance, a risk.
What are your thoughts on Guyana's politics, past and present? That's a big question, so maybe we can divide it.
The past.
You're a scholar. You have written good books on Indian indenture. Were Indians stultified after indentureship? Was there a rejectionist mentality on the part of the plantocracy and the mulatto Creole class that these people should not be in politics? And did Dr. Jagan suffer because of that, and by extension, Indian who wanted to be in politics? Your studies brought you into touch with that kind of
Again, politics where the Indians are concerned was not in the forefront of their experience up to, I would say, the 1960s. And that's one reason why Chedi Jagan were able to mobilize them, because he did not face much competition. There were competition, or the Indians, competing for political space. But at the same time, the Indians in the rural areas are waiting for the person to emerge, like the Mahatma Gandhi, to lead them out of this environment. Again, the rural area in Guyana, where the Indians are concerned, is a very fascinating place, because you wrote about a class analysis in the urban area. There are class dynamics in the rural areas of Guyana as well. You have the petty bourgeoisie, who the rice planting Indians, they own a lot of land. And so if you go along, say, from number 72 to 64 village, you would have seen about 10 rice mills each village. And they own these rice with other families individually. And then they hire the working class, the
rural proletariat.
Yes,
right.
Yeah. So that class dynamic survived there as well. There was nothing much in between. But what held them together is the religion, the culture. So despite the fact there was some economic exploitation, I think not some, a lot, they were together to somehow. And through weddings, through religious functions and so on that compensated for this division and exploitation when compared, for example, the white-black dynamics during the colonial period. But where politics is concerned, historically, we have carried over a lot of bad things. The divisions. And we have not done a good job in trying to bring these two ethnic groups together. I do not have to answer for that. And I think the period of that would have been in the 1950s and 1960s, when there was a vacuum there, where you have folks born in Chedijagan together, for example. And that was, obviously, they were killed by the United States and Britain, given the politics of communism and so on. So that was a unique period that really would have brought the ethnic groups politically together. How things would have panned out, I'm not sure. So I, personally speaking, I do not know how these two ethnic groups will come together. But I don't want to give up, because the drive with these ethnic groups is based on who gets what and when, as opposed to policies driven by policies for the betterment of all of Guyana. The problem here is politicians in Guyana are not elected at a local level. They're elected by the party. So if you have somebody going up there, he's not elected, he's not held accountable to the village of 69. He's not going to, answer the call of the people. He will answer to the party that brought him there. So I think one way to look at that, when politicians come to the table or elected by it should come from the environment they should be responsible for.
Are you making, pregnant in that delivery of yours, is the direction of constituency system as against PR? You favor the return of the constituency system?
Yes. So
you think it's better than the PR system?
It works well in the United States. I mean, you're responsible. Once someone elects you in the United States as a mayor or as a senator or whatever, and you go to the White House, you're there. But your mind is what brought you there? Yes. What brought you there? Otherwise, they kick you out. So the next time around with the election.
So you prefer we return to the first past the post system?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I'm not. Yes. I think the point I'm driving towards, responsibility is crucial in delivery of politics.
All right, gentlemen. I've been sitting here, and normally I would ask myself, how relevant is this conversation? And I know you guys are going to say history. If we forget history, we're bound to repeat it. But I want to ask you if it is not more relevant, the books, because I have a problem. I've seen a lot of our historians and our people who has knowledge do tremendous research. And then, other than us bringing it up here, it just kind of disappears somewhere. The schools doesn't use it as reference. I'm not sure where it lands. Maybe it's available on Amazon. The one book that I could remember that really had me intrigued was, I think Freddie has a second one, was by Dr. Yusuf Prasad. And if you haven't read it yet, his way of writing, his style of writing, it was very easy read. And it had me. But I always wondered if there was not a push to maybe get the authorities, maybe the government of the day, to maybe adopt these books, because they are so very valuable. You would not have been writing something unless you would have researched it and do a lot of research. It's hard work, and even to get it, it's costly also. But when we're talking about indentureship, I think we have to have some more, which brings it up to a period and the development of when the Indians arrived here, up to a period maybe 2015. Because what we have happening here now, we have this show right now on YouTube, on Facebook, and YouTube is where more of the middle age going upwards would be watching, and on Facebook we have a little slightly younger. but they're wondering why is this conversation really relevant, especially around this time here? Because that's why I asked the question. Um, Indians, Indians right now, there's a big debate going on whether Indians are not getting more contracts than blacks, and the government came out and says absolutely not. This is not a policy by the government, but it's just that this is the way that the system has allowed it. People who are involved in business are more Indo-Guyanese. And so I want to ask you along your thoughts. They're not a direct question, but maybe your comments.
Well, when you write and you publish, two things happen. One, you write for write's sake and it drops. Then you write for what we call applied solutions. So a book, an indenture, and it's not only indenture, it's beyond indenture. It's applicable to wherever it's going. So if you write for write's sake, that's okay. People do it a lot. But my intention, when I do write, I write so that it can be applied to solve problems or apply to areas to understand certain dynamics to lead to a solution. With this book, Indian Caribbean, it may sound parochial, but it's not parochial. If you look at the sub-themes, they look at various aspects of the wider Caribbean within the theme of Indians. And so when one writes about history, you do not only write about history, because you cannot write authoritatively on history without understanding the sociology of Indians, for example. You cannot write authoritative history if you don't understand the psychology of the plantocracy. You cannot write a history of leadership if you don't understand the relationships of Africans. So there are many dynamics, many dimensions to the book that if one reads it, then will bring out so many different things that one can use in the modern period. Now, whether the politicians want to read books dealing with Indians or history or indentureship or even the African experience, that's their call. The books are out there. The author does his or her job by writing a book. And it is for the politician now to take it to another level. That's one reason why people tend to launch their book, to give it a little more of a push, to explain it. So that, but the problem with that is that sometimes you try to launch a book and there's no politician around or no policy makers around.
There's an important section here that I think would gel with what Gildarie is saying, and I think this part of your book should be read to the viewers because it captures a particular era of Indian evolution that still has relevance up to today. Let me read this part of your book for our viewers, and maybe you can zero in from here. But before we go, time is going. I want to ask you if you think, you said you like so many of us, don't have the answer to bringing about this racial healing. I'm going to ask you if a bountiful, to use a word from the Rastafarian dictionary, if a steady supply of income that we've never experienced before, vis-a-vis the oil economy, if it could help to undermine racial suspicion. But let me read a part of this book that I think is interesting for our viewers to know. The capacity of Indian servants to retain certain homeland cultural features in the face of a hostile plantation environment was remarkable. Hinduism and Islam helped East Indians withstand hard times and guide their daily actions. These two religions provided the indentured servant with inspiration, reassurance, and psychological protection in times of doubt and tribulation. Very powerful statement. You believe that Swami Aksharanandan, who's a Swami, was on this program, and we asked him how a country like India with 20 different ethnic groups, 20 different languages, is able to hold itself together. He said he thinks the answer lies in the practice of their religion. So you think Islam and Hindu Dharma made Indian indentured servants survive?
Yes, to put it in a one statement, in a sort of classical way, it provided a deep anchorage for them. It formed a root upon which they navigate themselves. So if one cancels out the religion part, they would have been empty souls, be the victim of a plantocracy that really affected Africans a lot. The same thing would have happened with the Indian experience. During slavery, you see, the African religion, most part from Africa, but really died out or trampled upon, suppressed, and so on. In the case of the Indians, they were able to retain some of that in the post-slavery period. And because of those two religions, and it's not only the religion, the other things that related to it, the camaraderie, the community, the meetings. Like in Hinduism, you meet and you meet for 7 days, and for 7 nights, like the Jag and all of that. So all of that brought them together. It's a way to escape the sins of indenture, and without that, they would have. The thing is, they came from a strong environment, and they were able to maintain that. And one can argue that they look at slavery and indenture, they're not two the same institutions. Indenture suffered a lot, but not as a lot as what happened in slavery.
Yeah, I don't think the two should be compared.
Yeah.
But no journalist interviewing a scholar, a Guyanese scholar, not an Indian scholar from India. No journalist interviewing a Guyanese scholar who's an expert on Indian indentureship would let the interview end without questioning, because these books are your research.
Yeah.
Was there at any time the practice of the caste system in India? That's one. Do you see it existing in modern times when we came up to the early 20th century? And is it totally gone? One scholar from Barbados, Kim Gibson, she went on and on and on and on. No, that wasn't her field. Her field was literature, that there is a caste system among Indians. I don't think so. But you're the expert. You have produced 3 books on indenture.
I don't think the caste system exists in Guyana at all. And perhaps a definition of a caste is needed here. A caste is a form of social stratification whereby individuals are placed in specific categories or stations of life. So then your position is fixed. So if you look in Guyana, if you look in the Indian community, you're born, I'm born, Larry is born, we're not fixed in a position. If you look anywhere. So to say caste exists in Guyana, you don't understand the meaning of caste. Now, having said that, I think caste survive ideologically. Ideologically, meaning, but it has no bearing. For example, if you go to the rural areas of Guyana, you may find families calling another kid, hey, why am you Kulibai? Why you behave like this one? You believe like the low caste Indians. But it has no bearing. It just people talk. And in a way, it's good to speak out like that. But they don't use it as a way of suppressing the other. So it exists on a psychological, an ideological basis with no bearing. In an environment where there's no impact. Caste, to put it short, caste doesn't exist.
Did it exist after emancipation, after indentureship was abolished?
No, by the time of the 1920s, the influx of Indians had already dried out, died. One reason that the caste has survived somewhat during the indenture, it was going through a flux, because the arrival of new Indians. One has to understand that Indians in India were socialized according to caste system in the 19th century. So it would become natural to them to bring that sort of social structure. They're not going to bring something else. And so when that got into the Caribbean in Guyana, it had to face the class system, and because of the dynamics of the class system, the plutocracy was driven by that, the dominance of the plutocracy, the caste system gave way to a semi-class. So during indenture, Indian social structure was going through a flux. So by 1920, the caste was gone. And the Indians, once they started to settle, they moved more into the Western way of life without denouncing totally the connection with India.
As a Guyanese scholar writing about Guyana, you said, and so many of us have said it, how do you solve this racial thing? You visit your homeland, you go up to Berbice tomorrow, you spend time there, you have your house there.
Yeah.
You've never severed relation with Guyana, and that is so good. You must keep abreast with what is going on with this big oil find.
Yeah.
It's international business magazines, in think tanks outside that deal with strategic geopolitical issues. Guyana now featuring. It seems to be an alternative for good quality oil that will ease the pressure on the United States going all over looking for oil. Could this be, what's the, people pronounce the word differently, panacea?
Panacea, yeah.
Panacea. Could this be our moment of realization that the income would, every indication from the oil experts, the income is going to keep growing 2027, 2029, 2030. There's going to be huge influx of petrodollars. Could that be the solution to ethnic suspicion?
I think it's a social economic question. And if you look at, say, the United States, one reason the United States is doing well, I mean, they have ethnic problems, racial problems there, but it's because they have a middle class that sustain the economy. So if Guyana, if oil money could penetrate into the Guyanese community, Guyanese society, and transform it from a high and a low to a sort of a large middle class, that may resolve the ethnic problem to some degree. Because the middle class tend to be the sandwich sort of class that with very strong society. Those are the ones who generally vote. Those are the ones who are involved in business. Those are the ones who generally work. You see them more. They're more visible. So if we have a middle class emerging from the oil revenue, then we will able to resolve some aspects of this racial tension, ethnic tensions. Because once you have a middle class, I think you wouldn't have this sort of tug of war and so on. So the question then, how this middle class could be developed using oil revenue, okay? The middle class has to be across the ethnic divide, across the nation, all the counties, okay? So that if you go to the African community, you can see a visible, vibrant middle class, okay? You go to the Indian community, you see a vibrant middle class. Not everybody going to become rich and a high class because of oil money. Is that possible? It's not possible because the capital system does not operate that way. In order for the capital system to operate or to function, you must have some people subjected to it. A large body to Marxist theory. But if you have the middle class, Guyana does not have a middle class right now. And the middle class is determined by the economy, in respect industrial economy. Can Guyana move from pretty much the economy we have right now to an industrial one based on oil revenues? Then we'd be sitting golden. We'd be golden.
You don't see that possibility, or you see it in graphic terms?
I see it happening, but there's a vision. And, you know, when you have politicians involved in money and economics and social issues, one can be skeptical. Because if you look back historically, I mean, we're having the same problem over and over. And the people who are at the wheel are politicians. You know, you've written so much. Do they listen to what you I mean? Where are the changes? I mean, you speak out, both of you speak up on certain things. But the problem continue. There's some things have changed. But again, there had to be a vision you just can't have money coming in and going to bank account and you build this and that. If the people are not satisfied, the people are not able to eat hotel, man. They're going to eat this and that. You have to develop the people. I mean, access to social things, access to good health care. Those are things people like in developed countries, and that's why they don't rise up. So I can go, say I'm sick, I go get back on a plane, I got sick. I get a card, I go to the hospital. I can be taken care of. I don't have to fill out this paper and do that, and not me alone, the average person. Why? Because the economy is doing well, and you have this, again, that's my answer. That's my answer to your question. It does not mean that's the answer to the problem.
We have 1 minute remaining. I'll ask Gildarie to sum up, then I'll ask you to sum up.
Thank you very much. And you heard their interesting history lesson here again tonight. One other thing in addition to the Venezuela. Today, a man and a woman appeared, I think, at the Diamond Magistrate Court. Shocked me to the core. The lady, according to the charges, was driving on license. She had no license. So she breached her insurance. Touched a man with a mirror. Man fell along on the road, another car mashed him up. Man is dead. Two of them appear in court. She pleaded guilty, $75,000 fine, out of there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, I don't know what the police doing. Totally unacceptable. Justice needs to be done. We passed some laws recently. I think it has to do with traffic. And if the police are listening, that case has to be revisited. I think there's something is wrong, or is that our society is wrong?
I didn't know about that.
I saw it today, and $75,000 fine for that woman. That man who ran over that person.
And
that
the lady
died,
caused that.
That is what the story is saying.
Anyway.
I hope that is not the story that I'm reading. But if that is indeed the case, an immediate investigation, that case needs to be recalled. The DPP need to halt it, and that case needs to be investigated. It's impossible.
Professor, we have, do you want to sum up? I know you go to Berbice tomorrow. You in love with where you were born, Berbice. You want to tell us what are your thoughts on Guyana? I know you come often, so you'll be coming next year.
Where the books are concerned, we have right now an influx of people coming in from all parts of the world, neighboring the United States, so as well as Guyanese living abroad, who perhaps I believe need to know the history a little more. So these books and others will serve as a platform to have a better understanding of Guyana and the wider Caribbean where history is concerned. The other thing I want to say is that I hope that the border controversy does not take up the entire Guyana to a point where it creates so much anxiety, and that we need to be stronger and we need to be more information sharing so that we have an understanding of where we're going with this border controversy. For example, in schools, there should be counselors and so on. So that's an area for the government to work. I'm sure they're probably working on that. Where the money is going, either the money is coming in, I'm hoping that all Guyanese benefit from it, and that over time, probably 10 years from now, that we have a vibrant middle class, or we have access to things like other countries of the world. In other words, let's not misuse this unique opportunity. They might not never come back. Thank you.
Thanks. You were watching the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. It was a special evening because a number of birthdays met in a confluence that led to the celebration of one particular birthday, but maybe looking back now, we should have celebrated 3 birthdays. Friday was the birthday of our guest, Professor Lomarsh Roopnaraine. The next day, Saturday, was the birthday of Leonard Gildarie's wife. And tomorrow is the birthday of the co-host of this program, the famous journalist Leonard Gildarie.
And your birthday.
3 birthdays in December, and then my birthday is coming up on the 30th of December. So we had 4 birthdays this evening. If you missed tonight, go back to the show and you will see we celebrated Gildarie's birthday. One last toast for Dr. Roopnaraine, Leonard Gildarie, and Mistress Gildarie.
And the Friday too later this year. And everybody else who's celebrating. Thank you very much.
Thank you.